Bagram, I witnessed and endured many types of abuses myself, but the worst thing that I saw was a prisoner. He was brought to the front of my cell. His hands were tied to the top of the cage like this, and he was suspended. He had a hood placed over his head, and he was kicked repeatedly. And eventually he was killed. This is a death that the Americans have accepted, and the reason why they killed him was because they found it amusing that every time they kicked him on his leg, he said, Allah, Allah. So they kicked him so that he could say Allah, Allah, and he did that over 100 times. He was kicked on his leg. Probably the worst thing that happened to me in Bagram also, even I'd say maybe worse than, as bad as the murders, was that I heard the sounds of a woman screaming in the next cell that they led me to believe was my wife being tortured. They brought pictures of my family, of my children, in front of me while my hands were tied behind my back to my legs, and they said, where are your children? Where's your wife? What do you think happens to them the night we took them? We took you. And then while they're doing that, there's a sound of a woman screaming in the next cell. Guantanamo is an American project. It's Republican, it's Democrat, it's black, it's white, it's East Coast, it's West Coast. American President George Bush opened the place, but he also released the most prisoners. He released over 500 prisoners. Obama said he'd close it, but he didn't follow through on his promise. And he also failed to prosecute anyone that was involved in the torture. He gave them immunity. And that's why when Donald Trump came to power, he said, I believe torture works. Imagine if somebody of any other country said, I believe torture works and I will torture prisoners. Imagine somebody said, I will torture American prisoners, what the world would think. So he was allowed to say that because Obama didn't prosecute anybody for torture. And now that Biden's in power, he's been in power for 1 year and he's released one prisoner only. What I have done is try to seek accountability through the International Criminal Court, through the police, giving police evidence about the role of British intelligence in torture, which is a crime, through giving evidence at a war crimes tribunal. I've sat with ministers here in the government. I've sat with people who have ordered a judge-led inquiry into the role of the British in torture, and every single step of the way we find that the governments of the United States of America and all of its allies that were involved in torture are above the law.